Morning, guys. Will, just in time prepping. How you doing? If you remember, we left off at chapter 7, book 2 last week. So today we're going to start book 3 of chapter 7. You can always go back in my playlist and find the other chapters and catch up if you're just new to the story time. Adrian took his time going back. He skirted the small, nervous herd of mule deer huddled together for warmth, encouraged to discover them except for the amount of debris rolling with the wind. It was normal here. Plastic bags, fast food wrappers, bits of paper, mildewed clothes. It was the same garbage that had always littered America, but the amounts of it had grown drastically because litter patrols, trash removal were gone like everything else. There wasn't a single aspect of the American life that the war hadn't touched, changed, still, other than the debris that made odd noises in the wind and occasional rotting fox or rabbit. It was as if nothing bad had happened here, and that was the whole point of him choosing preserves and parks. How could his people heal if they were constantly being reminded of all the suffering and loss? Back in the heart of the camp now, Adrian moved quietly, hearing snores and tent flapping in the cold breeze. He was glad not to detect a single soul passed out around the bonfire. They were all inside, finally adjusting to being under canvas. Adrian nodded to Jeremy, the man now guarding the water tanker instead of Danny. It pleased him that the new sentry on the 100-gallon portable tankers were wearing the entire black outfit, but he didn't stop to talk. Aware of the two shadows that came with him as he got a cup of coffee from the deserted mess, Adrian headed for the tow truck that they had converted into the Safe Havens Communication Center. The guard here was his most promising man. A former captain in the infamous Genovese mob family, Kyle had also dressed in suggested black gear, even down to the cap over his short, curly black hair. Again, Adrian was more than happy he had changed Kyle's mind, convincing the man to make a clean break instead of trying to go to New York for any of his family who might have survived. Adrian hadn't been sure of the mobster at first, but he was now. Hear anything? Kyle frowned. Nothing but static, boss. Storm whacked the antenna good. Did Mitch pass the test? The stocky sentry frowned, hand resting lightly on the handle of his Glock. Yep, only one who did. I want him on the radio full time come morning. Tell him to get comfortable there. Kyle swept the landscape around them as he confirmed. You know it. Content for the moment, all of their kingdom was secure. The mobster took the opportunity to share his thoughts. Something's coming. Feel it in the wind. Adrian had the same worries. Good or bad? It's hard to tell. A little of both. Before Kyle could add anything, Adrian spun. The movement was so fast, his hand was there before the action had been registered. Adrian let go of the fingers that had been about to rob him of the dangling bandana in his front pocket. Damn. Pass. The Eagle, a plumber from Oregon, swallowed his surprise and snapped off a smart salute before vanishing into the darkness. Kyle grinned, thinking of his own level of test a few days ago. Daryl thought he had you. That's how he failed. Rushed the end and made a noise as he tried for it. Kyle lit a cheroot with a calloused hand, waiting to see if Adrian had anything else for him. Chris also passed. Dale needs to do it again. Kyle wrote it down, not questioning. Adrian was sharp judge of character, and Kyle already trusted him completely. I'll be in my tent, Adrian said. Kyle watched him go, thinking these people were lucky to have a natural-born leader. The blond man was hitting on all 8, knew what was coming and was preparing to handle it. Because of him, most of the people would probably live, if they finally got some of the help that Adrian had all of his top men on the lookout for. There might even be a chance at more than just surviving. Back in the heart of the camp now, Adrian moved quietly, hearing moan. Oh, we already read that part. Didn't go like I wanted it to. Chapter 8. Right place, right kind. It happens February 1st, and we're in Utah. Charlie saw the first and knew instinctively that they were who Kenny was looking for. It was only 3 o'clock, but the blanket of the sky crap, as Charlie called it, made it feel like dusk. 5 long days of traveling and the gritty wind had given them both red, squinted eyes and rough, sketchy skin on their faces and hands. The bike had been left in northern Arizona, empty of fuel and with no refills in sight. The Honda was now another rusting pile of metal along the side of the road. After that, things had gone downhill fast. It had rained nearly every day since the war, but Ken refused to consider trying to sterilize and drink it, worried it could still make them sick. As a result, they had to run out of clean water this morning, and the towns around here were non-existent. This was the southern Badlands, the Black Rock Desert, and they were in trouble. The main road, because of that, Utah was a huge place, and there would be no rescue party sent after them if they got lost. Ken hadn't located a home or a business of any kind since dawn yesterday, only the faint, gritty shadow of mountains to the east, north, and west. There was occasionally still a vehicle, the battery dead and the paint faded with the few windows, and with inches of dust inside, but there weren't any structures. There were only layers of sand. Ken's eyes swung east toward home, but his mind was on NORAD. There had been smoke from the direction almost continuously, and he had advanced them further west to check the Dugway proving ground. Overall, 257 was a surprisingly desolate stretch of highway was depressing, and Ken forced his sore feet to keep moving and his scratchy orbs to keep searching. Brought up in a wealthy family where he had been down and been the clown and party favorite, being totally on his own was new to Ken. Even in the Corps, there had been his fellow Marines to seek admiration from and depend on. The feeling of isolation was not welcome. It also didn't help that Charlie still wasn't talking to him unless he had to. Their direction wasn't due east, and the teenager didn't want to hear about slavers or detours. He wanted his mom. Charlie was staying a couple of feet behind the wide-shouldered Marine, sheltered from some of the stinging sand as he looked through Ken's powerful binoculars. He wasn't searching for anything, was just bored, sleepy, and very tired of walking. There was nothing to view except the big ants that Kenny wouldn't waste their ammunition on, and no sounds beyond the wind and the crunch of their bootsteps. He swung around to investigate behind them, and the flash of silver caught his attention. His jaw dropped, and in spite of a wave of wind sent harsh, stinging sand into his open mouth. He began to cough and spit doubled over. When Ken put his hand on his arm, Charlie thrust the binoculars at him. "People," he choked out, pointing. "It's headlights, right? Lots of them." Ken tensed, studying hard. A long line of people, but were they survivors or slavers? Guess we'll find out, he thought, studying the large convoy of semis, cars, and trucks now turning towards them. Lights flashed from the lead rig, and then from each vehicle as they were spotted. Ken felt his heart warm a little in that familiar American greeting, but it didn't ease the worrying in his gut. "Stay by me, boy. Do what I do." "Yes, sir." The two wary travelers waited tensely, Ken automatically trying to estimate the convoy's number. Not that it mattered. They couldn't fight so many, and there was no place to take cover, but he drew his gun anyway as the vehicles got closer, letting the weapon hang along his side. Thick sand blew harder as all the vehicles except the leading rig slowed and stopped. The red, white, and blue tractor trailer came forward, and Ken got ready to fight. The semi stopped smoothly next to them, and as the driver's window went down, Ken stepped in front of Charlie and lifted his gun to his hip. The barrel was still pointed at the dusty ground, but with his finger on the trigger. It was clear warning. The driver's big hand was on the wheel, and when the left hand finished with the window, he joined to the right. "Do you intend to use that weapon, soldier?" The voice was a cold bark, and years of training made both males square their shoulders. The correct response fell automatically from Ken's mouth, despite the insulting title. A Marine never draws without intent. That would be a mistake. "And what's wrong with that grunt?" The hard tone allowed no hesitation. "Because the United States Marine Corps does not make mistakes." Ken and Charlie answered together. Ken snapped his mouth shut, studying the driver. Short, golden blonde hair, black mirrored sunglasses, white t-shirt, and yes, they were the single dog tag. He had been found by one of his own. "So where are you headed?" This tone was friendly, open, but Ken understood that the first sharp edge of command, and he had greeted them with his real voice. "Northeast." "Looking for family?" Ken shrugged, not glancing away as the wind pushed more sand towards them. "Something like that." "He your son?" Always working on how he appeared to others, Ken used a protective tone. "He might have well been. I'm Ken. He's Charlie. We're from Fort Defiance." The driver took off his glasses, peered at Ken with beautiful pale blue eyes. "I'm Adrian." He hooked a thumb over his shoulder. Those are my people, and they're from everywhere. We have room as long as you follow the rules and pull your weight. The tone was casual, but the startling gaze was hard and assessing. Ken put away his gun, voice firm. "For a while, but he stays with me, and we leave together when I say. He's my people. We're Americans, Marine. No one is here against their will." Trying not to flush at the scorn in the response, Ken stayed quiet. Adrian picked up his mic and told someone to come get them. "We'll make the camp in about an hour, and Neil will get you settled." "Thanks, we could use some R&R." Adrian smiled. "Don't thank me yet. After a full week of working with us, you may want to be alone again." Ken was encouraged. Work meant organization, authority, and planning. All the things he was looking for in the people they would join. A small gray minivan pulled up next to the semi. The side door already open, and Ken automatically snapped a quick salute to Adrian. Not waiting for it to be returned, he waved Charlie in and climbed aboard, sliding the front door. The males were very grateful to be in any shelter, but this was... Excuse me, guys. Now I have to get a drink. Hold on. Okay, let's try it. The males were very grateful to be in the shelter, but this one was warm, comfortable, and moving. Ken sank down with a groan of relief, even as he swept the nicely armed men observing him. One was roughly the size of a tank, and the other two wore the weapons and tools of military men, though they were clearly weren't. Neil noticed the reaction, mind already racing as he reversed the minivan in the third in line. "It's not like that. If he thought you were a threat, he would have split you two up. You'd be alone with him." Ken was introduced to Doug, Kyle, and Neil, and he gave them only his first name in return with no details. Their leader knew he was military. These people could figure it out for themselves. All three men instinctively knew that they were important work waiting for Ken, serious deeds that would benefit them all. They also sensed that there was something not quite right, not completely true about the new man. "The boss has you with us. It means he probably already has a job in mind for you," Kyle stated from the front passenger seat. turning to stare at the 9mm on Ken's hip. When their eyes met, the eagle thought they would probably never drink from the same bottle. There was something hinky about the new guy. Ken frowned at the stocky sentry with tan skin and black curls like, "What? We just met." All three men hesitated, shrugging, and Ken sensed it. It was respect, keeping their mouths closed. Those were the boss man's questions, and those were his highest men. All three men struggling, and Ken sensed it was respect, keeping their mouths closed. Could be anything, Neil said finally. He ran a hand over the shoulder-length brown hair in a way that implied disappointment and a little bitterness. Mechanic, babysitter, it's hard to tell. He sees things in people, discovers their talents. Neil paused, examining him in the mirror in a way that was polite but not friendly. Hell, he might think you should be one of us. Ken took the cigarette that was offered and handed the bottle of water to the boy relaxing next to him. Aware of the red-vested giant watching the teenager, maybe wondering what stories Charlie might tell if he was alone. Ken would make sure that that didn't happen for a while. Sounds like a club, Ken provoked lightly, testing the water. His comment drew a warning from the Irishman in the swiveled seat in the front of them. It is. We're his chain of command, and we support him. Completely, Doug stated. Ken smiled easily, not intimidated. I'd like to be able to do that too. We owe him our lives now. Sell me. Adrian shifted into gear and got his convoy moving. They were going to Delta for people who had called on the CB this morning. And then he planned to spend a few days in Oak Creek National Forest. The dust and the wind were horrible for driving. The sand got into everything as it gusted against their battered vehicles, and he wanted to wait until it settled before heading out again. His thoughts went to his newest addition as he drove, mind replaying the meeting. Their uniforms hadn't mattered. He had known the man and boy for what they were the second he saw the shadowy outlines, and he didn't think it was only coincidence that they were Marines. The few he was hunting for would have that special spark with their bloodline. How could they not? Atlantis and Mary Magdalene might have long gone, but their descendants were not. Ken would likely turn out to be one of his circle. Adrian could feel that, but instead of being elated to finally found his first, he was worried. There was a sinking feeling that Ken might also be a weak link, and that was dangerous because of the first of his circle would be one of the dependent on the most. The bond of bringing these people through the wilderness was one that would need to be strong enough to hold them all together. It was the foundation, and if that was a crack, a weak brick, the whole thing could fall apart. Head starting to ache from peering through the grit, Adrian sighed. It didn't matter right now. The man was desperately needed. No question there, and he didn't have the luxury of cherry-picking his help. Besides, Ken had put the boy behind him instead of in front. That said enough about his character, didn't it? The ride was a slow but quiet one. Ken and Charlie dozed almost away from Ken. Ken was impressed from the minute they stopped to make camp. The feeling only grew as he watched them set it all up, recognizing the equipment and techniques. There was no denying the feeling of longing, the old edge of excitement and glory that he'd been missing. Not just a fellow grunt, Adrian had been a military leader, and Ken was about to serve him. Tents were erected, and campers and trucks guided into a place, and yellow caution tape would around the entire perimeter. People ran for the bathrooms. Animals were let out. Supplies unpacked, and through it all, there was Neil directing, solving, and supervising. Ken knew instinctively it was a perk of leadership to have that job, commanding this authority during the moves, and was only a little surprised to already feel himself wanting it. He had definitely found his own kind in Adrian. And it only took a couple of minutes for him to understand by the actions of the guards that the blonde leader had no executive officer. His right side was empty, and they all trying for the place of XO. Ken's sharp gaze found Adrian directing the camp members in the parking area, and his eyes narrowed, feet already moving. Was someone sneaking through the cars? He was at the leader's side seconds later, drawing frowns from the men around him. But instead of saying anything, he chose to handle it himself, hoping to earn points. When the shadow tried to slip a hand between the metal bodies of the cars, Ken locked it in the tight grip, 9mm pointed at the infiltrator. Adrian was pleased. Easy, he's one of ours. Realizing it was a test or a challenge of some type that he'd interrupted, Ken leered as he let go. Booyah! Adrian swept the surprised men, most of whom hadn't noticed the rookie at all because of the blowing sand. Training lesson number 8. Sometimes, no matter how or what you plan for, fate throws a wild card and you do the best you can to survive. Adrian gave Jeremy a motion. Pass. Helped him set up the targets, and we'll discover if our new man knows how to use the weapon on his hip. Ken took the hint, holstering as Jeremy threw him a sharp glare and stomped off. Maybe I could help with a drill or something, Ken offered. Adrian's tone was full of warning. That and more, but you'll have to work for it. Nothing's free in this new world, and certainly not in Safe Haven. I've always earned my way before, and I expect to now. Welcome aboard, Grunt. Let's get to work. Ken grinned as he fell on Adrian's right, aware of the camp watching him openly, whispering and wondering who he was, finally. Finally, the attention he craved. Charlie hid his frown and stayed close to Ken. It felt good here, but it wasn't home, and he had strong sense that the Marine would want to stay and never go back. Those were Kenny's type of people. The teenager could feel that, and he wanted his mom even more. She said she was coming soon, but he couldn't help his doubts. He'd heard her calls to someone named Marcus. Was sure Kenny had too, though he had pretended to be asleep, and Charlie was afraid for her. He and Ken were Marines, and they had been in big trouble more than once. Been lucky to escape. She would never make it alone. She needed the help that could not yet get to her, but would fight for her when she arrived. Kenny was a true badass, and not just anyone would be able to handle him. All right, that's it for today. That was a long one. I'm sorry it took us 23 minutes, you guys, but I didn't want to stop in the middle of a book, and it was getting pretty intense there, so it looks like they're slowly on their voyage north up into Montana. Believe that is where they're headed. They're picking up people along the way, and the leader, Adrian, is a pretty good judge of characters, so if he doesn't want them with him, I don't know what he does. Probably leaves them along the road, but anyway, it's getting pretty interesting, and it's kind of flowing right along with the things I talk about on Monday night panel. So we're going to try to stop here, and next week it looks like we're going to go into Chapter 9, and the title of it will be Mercy and Death, Groundhog's Day. Here, it sounds pretty good. It's going to take place on NORAD Road in Colorado. So that's it. So don't forget, today is Tuesday, tomorrow is the live stream, Wednesday, coffee chat with Will, and we're going to sit around and talk whatever comes up, and we'll be taking the names down for the drawing on Saturday night. We're going to go ahead, and I'll probably do another just a live stream either Thursday or Friday, but I will announce it via a video probably, and we'll talk some more. Maybe I'll start talking about the book as to where we're at now and stuff, so the people that are following along can input on their thoughts, and then the new people can kind of catch up. But also remember, I put each day that we do the story time, I put it in my playlist, and it's called Story Time with Will. So if you're just joining into the story, go back and listen to the other, looks like 8 chapters now, and catch up. It doesn't take long. I only read for about a half hour a day, if that. Some days are shorter than others. So until next time, you guys, I can't do any of it without you. Guess what? I hit 4,000 hours finally. Okay, it's God bless you, God bless me, God bless the US of A. Thanks for watching. I'll see you again.